Introverts of Reddit. Imagine it's a reverse pandemic and, to not get sick and die, you had to spend all of your time outside, with other people and in crowds. How would you cope? Do you survive? Like how many people? If I could just spend time with my close friends I would be fine. But large noisy crowds all the time would probably be deadly. So it would probably be the inverse of COVID restrictions, so obviously it's different around the world. If you were home it would have to be more than 10 people. Maybe I could find 10 friends for this. This could work. That's something I didn't think of. But also you would have to make sure you didn't get on each other's nerves. I mean, even 2 people in the same house for months can be perilous. I wonder if people would be more or less tolerant if their lives depended on it. The people don't have to stay the same. It's not corona, remember? We could just go and meet all our families at once, and then we could spend time with our families 10 people circle, and then circle back to our friends that way. Then we would be the ones making all the "I'm depressed because of the pandemic" threads. And the extroverts would be saying "lol nah, just go out and meet some new people. You told me that the last 29 years. Mom. Then after a few weeks turns out I'm not as extroverted as I thought I was. Can't wait until this has all gone away and I can just watch Netflix again. Nah, I'm still just as introverted as I was before the pandemic. I work from home and only really interact with my GF in person. It's fucking heaven. I love my friends, but they can be so goddamn exhausting. It's great having some distance between us from time to time. And the longer this pandemic goes on, the more I realize I don't mind that from time to time, having very short intervals. Agreed. The pandemic has been an amazing time for me. I also work from home and only really interact with my husband. The only thing I really miss is my one social event of the week when one of my friends would come over to drink wine and bitch about work, but even then I don't miss it that much. My extrovert husband on the other hand absolutely misses spending time with groups and friends, but he is better able to empathize with me now, so that's a big plus. I guess I'll just die. After thinking about this, I actually feel really bad for extroverts. This is what they have to deal with. Wow, I didn't even think about that. I feel bad for extroverts now too. My husband is an extrovert, and it has been hell on him mentally. He desperately wants to go out and hang with friends. The only time we interact with other people is when we go to the pediatrician's office for our son. And he will talk the doc's ear off. How about playing a game with them? My BF Skywalker started WoW, so we joined. We both played before, and now we have our own little guild, and playing together while talking on Discord is lots of fun. I would find a bunch of introverts and hang out with them. We would all just have earphones on. We would be in a crowd, outside, and quiet. That's actually something I didn't think of. You'd start to live in groups/communities similar to you. Kind of what happens now with clubs and whatnot, but never ending clubs. And you might go to different groups depending what mood you're in. There might be a quiet part of the city, loud part of the city. Very interesting. Edit. As a middle-aged man, I of course have a podcast and it's about stupid questions like this. It's called Is This a Stupid Question? Podcast if anyone wants to check it out. Together alone. Alone is derived from all one. That's bullshit, but I'll believe it for now. Anywhere where there are people. I'd probably spend my time at Disneyland or Universal Studios. Love the vibe there, and I'm an extreme introvert. Amazing that in this world, staff at Disneyland and Universal Studios become the essential workers. A lot of other places, too. Movie theaters, dance clubs, sports arenas. Pretty much every entertainment venue where lots of people gather. Really, the exact opposite of what's going on in reality, which is only appropriate in this reverse pandemic. About the only place that stays the same in both worlds is the grocery store. Watch My Library would host so many events, and most likely be open 24/7, and everyone would be encouraged to bring their family to work. Like readings and overnight reading parties. And as we are having a spaceship/future event this year anyway, I think we could have people over who talk about the future, saving the planet, but also some who tell about rocket science, stars, different galaxies and thinking about stars, maybe also horoscopes, and maybe we would have someone over who would explain zodiacs, and also the ones from different cultures. And I think it would be nice to have a knitting/sewing group come at least once a week. As we have 3 stories plus a conference room, we could host several fairly quiet groups at once. OHH, it would be so much fun. My BF would not like that scenario though. He is a total introvert and has PTSD on top of that. But maybe he would visit group sittings for that. And come along on quiet reading nights at the library. We'd have to arrange nursing home crawls and parades to be sure the elderly and those who were unable to easily access crowds saw enough people to be healthy. The extrademic came upon us suddenly, sweeping through humanity with the speed of an excited people person reciting their various mundane tasks to a disinterested bystander. One day the world made sense. There was time for peaceful contemplation away from the constant demands of people who had nothing better to do than bother other people. And the next day, it was all gone. For many, the entire event had been a boon. A way for us to really get to know one another and share everything. I'm not one of those people. Ever since the strange malady burst forth, it's been an unending nightmare. A gruesome montage of feigned interest in workplace stories. Waiting in lines with eager children asking me why I look funny. And unending casual banter with baristas. Everywhere there are signs warning us of the dangers of isolation. Better together. Was plastered over half the surfaces in public buildings. Apparently a half-assed political slogan made for a full-assed health warning. There were more dire slogans as well. Mostly posted up on studio apartments and other small living spaces. On those, there was a skull and crossbones accompanied by solitary infestation zone. Nowadays, the sign background was mostly black, signaling that someone had died within and that there may be residual lone wolf 21 virus. Sometimes, you'd still see a red, indicating some loner had managed to survive long enough to get the sign put up letting everyone know to steer clear. I thought about trying to make it solo, to just roll the dice and see if I could come out the other side of shitshow with my sanity intact. But I couldn't do that to my mom. Now that this disease has rolled around, she's got the perfect excuse to call 30 times a day and I don't have an excuse to duck it. I couldn't tell her I went ISO. It'd break her heart. So I've been out and about. Every day I'm putting on the best face I can, smiling and pretending like I'm not dying inside. Because that's what you do. That's how you survive now. You trade sanity for health. I've got 13 friendship bracelets on now. And people look at me like I'm a leper. How come you don't have more? You'll be richer with more friends. And healthier too. They exclaim. 13 is unlucky. Why? Just earlier that day, they were having / insert random boring anecdote tangentially related to number 13 and whatever self-aggrandizing point they want to make. Sick of this bullshit. Sick of it all. I just want to go home. Go to my room. Pull the door shut and sleep for a week. But I can't go ISO. Gotta stay positive so I don't test positive. Better together. FML. Welcome to my personal hell. See that apartment building? It is all studio apartments. My apartment is there. I haven't been able to go inside it for 8 months. I live alone. No spouse. No girlfriend. No kids. No family in the area. Everything I own is there, and I can't get to it. I had to move into a hostel. I'm sleeping on a bunk in a room with 20 other people. Eat in a sleepaway camp style cafeteria. Share with 10 other people. The lack of privacy has changed things. When I was a teenager and in my 20s watching people have sex was great. Now I want a return to people fucking in private. I never would have predicted that group sex would actually become the norm and one-on-one sex being as special as threesomes. Now, keep in mind that I still have to pay rent on an apartment that I can't use, power, water and internet for an apartment I can't enter as well as hotel food and rent. I left a bottle of milk on the counter when I left for work that fateful day. 8 months later, I'm afraid of the smell that I'm going to be greeted with, assuming this ever comes to an end. My friend Joe was arrested. The police squad was patrolling his neighborhood and he was alone. Violation of the anti-isolation law is a 4-month quarantine with other violators. Turns out he has to share a cell with an Amway salesman and 4 Primerica recruiters. My conspiracy theory is that MLM people are getting arrested on purpose so their prospective recruits can't instantly escape. I have to go. There is a mandatory birthday part for a neighbor kid. He turned 1 3 weeks ago and this will be his 10th first birthday party. I'm so fucking sick of birthday cake. Can you please complete this novel? I need to know the ending. I added more. Being outside with other people, or in crowds, doesn't really imply constant social interaction. Simply being around other people is not an issue. I could sit in a cafe and play on a laptop / listen to music. Whatever. Doesn't mean I have to socialize with them. There are people who get anxiety from being in crowds of people. But this is not necessarily specific to introverts. And not all introverts have it. The majority of introverts had to be around hundreds of people most of the day in school / work anyway. It's not something that causes us all to get depressed. We just tend to withdraw more from social interactions and spend more time in our thoughts. A lot of introverts spend more time at home, indulging in their hobbies such as watching TV, playing video games, reading books, etc. This habit would be hard to break and may cause significant distress for some people. Kind of like a recovering addict would face, but not as severe. There are people who get anxiety from being in crowds of people, but this is not necessarily specific to introverts. And not all introverts have it. As an introvert and somebody who suffers specifically from severe social anxiety, I would much rather be in a crowd of people than sitting at a table with 1, 2, or 3 others. It's so much easier to blend in with a crowd, and people aren't really paying attention to you specifically. I'm an introvert. No social anxiety. I would hate it, and after some time I would be angry at everyone and nasty. Well heck. That would be really unpleasant. This actually gave me a pretty visceral negative reaction thinking about. And I'm not even that terribly introverted, I think. If that's how unpleasant staying in has been for some folks, I definitely feel for them. Ugh. This is exactly where my thinking came from. I'm quite lucky that I like my own and my wife's company and can endlessly spend time indoors being entertained. I can't imagine your recharge being other people and having to stay away. I have no idea. I hate being in large crowds. Yep. Fuck crowded places. That's my version of hell. In the crowd you are invisible. My anxiety says otherwise. Hello. Extrovert here. I am not thriving in this reality. I wish to partake in that reality. I got COVID pretty early, elementary school teacher, and when schools closed I clung to my waitressing job, so I could have human interaction, and Zoom hangouts are not cutting it. My husband had to sit me down and have a serious conversation about how important it was that I keep him in the loop with my mental health, because my main sustenance is conversation. I would imagine the same thing would be necessary here, but opposite. Someone passing a note along to an introvert saying, "Hello, you do not need to answer this unless you're not doing well, but we can go sit on a bench somewhere so we're safe and we won't have to talk." A reverse speakeasy. A speakadly. Heaven. If it seemed like people were drinking a lot while in isolation, being in a group is the best way to drive everyone to drinking. Hopefully introverts, well everyone, will have access to pandemic alcohol for these group gatherings. R.I.P. my lover. I would die of suicide before the 4th month. I'd make it maybe a month and a half, if I'm being generous. Nope, I would die. I guess I have seen other answers that had more creative solutions and such, which could be short-term solutions, but I sense people's energy, even if they do nothing. Don't talk to me. Have earphones on, etc. So it would only go so far. Reverse pandemic would be the end of me, which now makes me think about the immense suffering of extroverts during this pandemic. Before, I was more like they can get over it. I also feel others' energy in the same room. Except I'm an extrovert, and I thrive on it. Social distancing sucks. I wish I thrived off of it. It's like someone hitting me in the face with a brick. No, I died. Guess _real_die. JPG. Ed learn ASL and make a lot of deaf friends. That way we can still hang out and communicate, but it would be FK and quiet. I've been meaning to warn ASL anyway. I don't cope well, and survival would be a fucking pain. I typically like inside. Don't like the majority of people. And fucking hate crowds. I prefer to stay to myself. Go about my business. And typically interact with only a small amount of people. Considering my personality, and assuming this reverse COVID is as bad as regular COVID, I'll take my chances. get sick, and hopefully not die. Would the fact that doing this somehow transmits the virus to other people who are also by themselves change your mind? I don't mind crowds, as long as I don't have to interact. The person at a party reading a book. You could go to a library. They are busy, even in a pandemic. That's my plan. Hang out in the library. I was thinking library too. And if there's a rule that everyone must be outside, I assume someone will have set up an outdoor library/desk area. It would be exhausting. I can't even tolerate my best friends for more than one day and we real pretty chill. I need my alone days. I am terrible with conversation and would probably just tag along to everything they do just in exchange to not need to talk with others. But lines get aggressive if I don't get my own time. So it probably won't end well for me. I was sick in my mouth a little just reading this. I don't think I could handle it. No, I absolutely would not make it after the first 2 months. Continue teaching. My brain has been hardwired to switching to extra mode when I'm in class. If it means that I'm not stuck at home with toxic family all the time, I'd be having an amazing time. So I have some sensory issues when it comes to being out in public. I tire out very quickly unless I'm in the right setting. Also, if I'm outside, it's almost a guarantee that I will be miserable in a few hours since the sun hurts my eyes. And if it's cold, that time is drastically lower. Funnily enough, conventions and the like actually relax me more than anything because I feel like I'm surrounded by people who share my propensity for being isolated, and also I don't have to mask as much and can relax and be myself. So in an unconventional situation where I have to be surrounded by people or else I'd die, I'd hope for conventions, or I'll just sit in my house and suffer. The trick to surviving as an introvert is to find people who don't suck you drive energy. They're rare and hard to find, but it's usually the best thing on the world when you find them. So to survive your reverse quarantine, I'd have to make sure that the majority of my time was spent with these types of people. Yes, you would find the least draining people and hang out with them. There are even people that aren't draining at all. They just need to be comfortable people. The analogy that really stuck for me is introverts have a battery that drains at different levels to expend social energy. Extroverts are solar panels that get their power to run off social interaction. If you find people who let you keep your charge, you are good. Having to burn charge like speaking with a bank teller or work meetings runs down your operational time. I prefer to be inside in solitude, but I'd be fine in this scenario, I think. Edit. Actually, fuck this scenario. Did you know that you can in fact be an introvert and still have great social skills? I'm an introvert who can wear the pants of an extrovert when I need to. I worked as a waiter for almost a decade, striking up cold conversations with strangers. I just simply value and recharge with some time to myself. Introvert equals you recharge alone. Extrovert equals you recharge with social interaction. It has absolutely nothing to do with how adequate your social skills are. I've known extroverts with horrible social skills. I'm an introvert with amazing charisma, so I'd adapt just fine because being an introvert has nothing to do with social anxiety. But OP specifically says you now have to spend all your time around other people. OP wants to know how you will cope without having any alone time to recharge. I feel like the comment you are applying to always comes up whenever someone talks about introverts on Reddit. Like, yay. The exact thing you are describing is what could be problematic. Nobody is talking about social anxiety. Yeah, I completely understand calling out posts that are talking about social anxiety and not introversion. But when a post is specifically talking about the alone time angle, it's time to STFU about social anxiety, because a shit ton of people are still posting about how difficult it would be to handle their social anxiety thinking they are talking about introversion. If you are new to TattleTale TV, please subscribe. We have new videos every day. Stay tuned for more coming up next.